Hi, my name is Dr. Tred Rissacher, and I am the doctor, the owner, and a client at my Dr. Tred's Slim Body Laser Spa located here in Stuart. We're using laser to assist with weight loss, laser to help with body sculpting, spot fat reduction, tightening chins, helping with belly fat, all the areas that are so difficult and stubborn. Now, the purpose of today's video is to explain a little bit about some of the analogies that we use to explain how the laser works. There's a lot of questions about what does the laser do, where does the fat go, what's the difference, why can't I just exercise and diet and change my body composition and my appearance. And I'm going to explain in this video exactly what the laser does in a simple analogy that we use every single day in the office here when we explain the procedure to our new clients. Excuse me. So, before I can explain this to you, I have to give you a little education about where you store calories, okay? And meaning where you make fat. One of the abilities for a human to store extra calories is very precious. And, 10,000 years ago, when there wasn't a lot of food on the planet, it was scarce to find, making those extra calories was really important. So these tendencies have taken, we carry them with us. They're genetic, and it happens to us whether we're in an industrialized world, no matter how much food is around, we still have to deal with these truths. So for the most part, when you eat food, you're eating food to replace the energy that you burned the day before. So if you burn 2,000 calories working and taking care of your family during the day, the next day you need to eat 2,000 calories. If you don't eat 2,000 calories and you're burning 2,000, let's say you eat 1,000, eventually your body will become decimated and smaller, and you'll waste away. In other words, you need that food to replace the energy that you burn. Now, since we live in a food scarce environment for the most part, many years ago, your ability to overeat was critical to your survival. Long winters, long time without food, making that fat's really important. Now, when you overeat more than you burn for the day, you store extra fat. Now, when I got out of college, as most of you would believe, I believe that when you ate less and you lost weight, that you burned calories from your entire body, that all of your body fat contributed to that need, but it's not true. When you store calories and make extra fat, it does it in two main compartments, two areas in your body that you store calories. And it's on this little diagram here. It shows you store calories in your visceral fat and in your subcutaneous fat. These are the two compartments. Now, the visceral fat compartment over here is definitely your day-to-day calories. It's like your refrigerator at home. The calories that are on the left side over here are subcutaneous. And this is a layer that is a protective layer that protects you. That's why it surrounds your whole entire body. It's also activated, or it's a storage compartment when you need to eat a lot of food because you might be going into a long time without food. Maybe 5 or 6 months in winter. The person who put on the most calories has a better chance of surviving a long winter, and those extra calories go to the outside fat, the subcutaneous fat. The third reason for the subcutaneous fat is it's activated when a woman becomes pregnant. A woman's ability to have a child and to make sure that that baby is fed from her own body for 2 or 3 years is really, really important. So when a woman becomes pregnant, and there's some hormonal changes that go on, she'll start to store fat in this outer compartment. And in 9 months, as the fat is being stored and being shifted to the outer compartment, and the baby's born, then when her hormones come back, she starts breastfeeding, and 2 months to 2 years, her menstrual cycle comes back, then those calories are released to benefit the child. So there is a hormonal component to this outer fat layer, which is important to understand, because a lot of you out there are suffering from this problem, not just overeating. It can also be from hormones. So my laser all the procedures that you're learning about in non-invasive body sculpting, spot fat reduction, and there's many brands out there, including liposuction and fat freezing and fat burning and ultrasound cavitation, and of course, excuse me, our low-level laser, all target the subcutaneous compartment only. They only target this layer on the outside of the body. Very important to understand that. Nothing goes through the muscle wall. Nothing targets the visceral fat. And this is where you carry weight. So if you need to lose weight, you got to eat less and exercise to get rid of the weight. But if you have an accumulation of subcutaneous fat on the outside from pregnancies, from bad habits, from aging, these outside procedures are critically important because they can get you results where you couldn't do it with just weight loss alone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain an analogy that'll explain these different procedures, how they work, what they do, their mechanism of action, and I hope that when you see this, you'll realize why the subcutaneous, why the low-level laser that we're using, the Lapex, is such a fantastic tool to help you to feel better and look better. So remember that your visceral fat is your kitchen, and the subcutaneous fat is an extra compartment that you've used to store extra calories. Now, in this analogy, the subcutaneous fat is going to be represented by the food you have in the garage. So you got food in the kitchen that you buy and you eat day to day. Calories go up and down. That's yo-yo dieting. It happens from the visceral fat. The outer fat compartment is stubborn fat. This doesn't go up and down every time you eat. It only goes up when you overeat. And this is the food you have in the garage for this analogy. So you're at your house and a little girl comes over to visit, one of the kids from the neighborhood, and she's got her bicycle. And she's like, I'd love to visit, but I don't want to leave my bike in front of the house. Do you have a spot I can put it so it doesn't get stolen? And you're like, well, of course, honey, we have a garage. And it's also where you're storing that emergency food for that hurricane possibly coming. And so you go out to the garage and you go to lift up the garage door. And when you lift it up, it's filled with food. I mean, the food is packed right to the door. There's no room for the car. There's no room for the bicycle. No room for you. And you've been neglected. You haven't realized how much food you've been storing in there. And you're a bit embarrassed. You didn't realize there was no room in the garage. And you look at the food and you look at it and you say, man, some of this food is from Hurricane Andrew. It's like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. My goodness. And you realize that let's get some of this food out. So you tell the little girl, honey, go get the trash can. Let's pull some of that food out and we'll put your bike in here today. So she comes over with the trash can. You get on your hands and knees. You get down with the food and you're like, hold on, I'll get it out. You know what? It's not coming out. It's part of the floor. It's part of the garage. It's somehow, I can't get it out this way. And that's absolutely right. Fat calories are precious. If you're lucky enough to have eaten enough and hadn't, remember 10,000 years ago, most of your friends, your people in your tribe would have died from starvation unless you were able to make fat. So that fat calorie that you've made in your subcutaneous is precious. Might not seem precious today, but it really is precious. And the body doesn't just release it for no reason. You're either going to use it as energy or you're going to die with that calorie, but there is no mechanism where all your fat cells just go away automatically. So you can't take them out. So you look at it, you're like, well, honey, I can't put your bike in there today. And one of the neighbors walks by and he hears what you're saying, and he's a techie guy, and he's got this nitrogen gun, this freezing gun which blows nitrogen out and freezes anything he blows it on. And he's like, I've got an idea. Why don't I take my nitrogen freezing gun and just freeze the front half of those calories, that food in the garage, and let's see what happens. Maybe we can, get some of it out for you. Sounds good. So he takes the nitrogen gun and he treats it for 50 minutes on that layer very slowly, but as he's doing it, it's starting to freeze. It's cracking and it's becoming hardened. And then after 2 or 3 days, it turns to fluid and it turns to, some pus and some dead tissue, food particles. And after about 2 to 3 months, all that debris is sucked back into the garage. And after 3 months, you have a little bit of a change. That's cool sculpting, everybody. That's what fat freezing's doing. They're killing the cells and they're being absorbed into the body as dead tissue, not as calories. And another person is watching this and he's like, I don't believe in that cold nitrogen thing. I have a hot laser and it's handheld and I can come, and what we'll do is we'll basically cook the front half of the food till it starts to die, and I'll burn it, and he does it for the 30, 40, 50 minutes, and it turns black and it chars a little bit, and then it cracks and it forms fluid. It becomes all fluid-like, and after 3 or 4 days it starts to be absorbed, and after 3 months it's all absorbed somehow into the garage, and you get a little bit of a change. You know, that's your safe sculpt and your sculpture. These names, that's a hot laser. Again, burning the fat, destroying it, and then it's being absorbed into the body. At the same time, there's an old timer that's been watching all this, and he's like, you know, I come from the old school, and I have a way of doing this too, and I'm going to use a scraping tool, like a floor scraper, and I'm just going to scrape the front half off of this food in your garage. And as he does it, he's scraping it. He comes in with a shop vac, and he sucks it up off the ground, and you know, hello, that's liposuction. Destroying it, sucking it out of the body. That's not what we do. So you look at the girl and you're like, honey, I can't get the food out. I can't put your bike in here today. And she says to you, she goes, well, you know, she looks at the food and looks at you and says, hey, she goes, you got to eat the food in the garage. You're like, excuse me? She goes, you got to eat the food in the garage. You've been buying food from the store and putting it in the garage, and buying food from the store and putting it in the kitchen, and you've only been eating from the kitchen. You've never eaten any of the food from the garage, so of course it's building up. You got to eat it. Well, you know, she's right. And the way the body works, your idea was that this was stored food for a hurricane. It's canned food, it's Beanie Weenies, it's Chef Boyardee. You weren't planning on coming home and eating it as long as your kitchen is full. The purpose of the extra food in the garage was when there's a storm comes and you end up having to eat all the food in your house and there's no way to get to the store, thank God, and you're out of food, thank God you have that food in the garage. Well, your body's the same way. Your visceral fat's going to fill up first. When the visceral gets overfilled, it goes to the outside. And then when you start eating less, the visceral fat goes down first before the outside fat. This is an emergency layer. So that's why it's so difficult to target, even for somebody who's younger. And then you combine that with a hormonal change from menopause, and this fat is now estrogen dominant, this calories in the garage. And, you know, it's very difficult. So she says to you, she goes, I'll tell you what, and this is where the laser is the analogy of how it works. She goes, I'll come into you, how about if we just have lunch from the garage 3 times a week for 3 weeks? And in 3 weeks, by eating one meal from the garage, I'll help you. You'll make enough room for my bicycle so when I come over, I can visit. And you want to help her, and you'd like to get your garage back. You haven't used it in a while, so you agree to that. Now, the only thing she tells you is don't eat 2 hours before you come over. Make sure when you come over, you're hungry, because we're having lunch from the garage, not from the house. So Monday comes around. She goes into the garage with a tray. And she goes to the garage and she opens up the cans or whatever the food is in with a little opener and then puts the calories on the plate. That's all the laser does. The laser is opening up the fat cells using a low-level energy. When the fat cells are open in 8 to 10 minutes, the calories released, and basically those fat cells are not damaged. They close back up and they can absorb calories again. So, and that seems like a bad thing, but it's a good thing because you're not destroying tissue. You're not creating any possibility of fat migration, which happens when you remove fat tissue. So, and it releases 600 calories in 30 minutes. So she opened up the cans like the laser, and now there's 600 calories on the tray. Now, you're not going to go out and eat in the garage. That's not where your body's that's where you store the food. You got to bring it into the kitchen to eat it. So she walks from the garage into the kitchen and puts it on the table. That's the purpose of our whole body vibration program. 30 minutes on the laser, 10 minutes on whole body vibration. That 10 minutes on whole body vibration efficiently moves those calories from the interstitial space, the garage, into the kitchen, which is your visceral fat. Now, you come home, you haven't eaten in 2 hours, you're hungry, and there's lunch. You eat the lunch, it goes into the air as energy. You make a room in the garage, you're not making new fat. That's really what we're doing. Now you repeat that every other day for 3 weeks, and this is how we get a 6 to a 9-inch loss in the outer compartment only. You don't have to wait 3 months, you don't have to wait a year. It happens right away. Each time you do it, you're measured at the first visit, the 5th and the 9th. Pictures are taken, and all the results that you see in our office, all the testimonials, are 9 sessions in 3 weeks. Now, where you can make a mistake with this is if you come in for lunch and you just have lunch. So she comes in, has the lunch. You come home and you say, "Oh, honey, I just had lunch with my girlfriends at the club. I can't eat. I'm full." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean you're full? I can't put it back in the garage. I can't throw it out. The body won't allow you to throw it out." And she's like, "What do I do?" And you're like, "Honey, leave it in the kitchen. I'll get to it later today or tomorrow." Now, the body will store that fat again in 4 hours, not 2 days. So it's going to be restored somewhere else. And that we don't want to have happen. Now, for some people, it's okay. Their metabolism's really good. They're athletic. They're burning calories. But for the average client that comes in here whose metabolism is slow, they have hormonal changes, that rule needs to be really steadfast. So that means no food 2 hours before the laser, no food 2 hours after the laser. Now, we do offer a high-quality protein supplement drink because people are hungry. And it's low in sugar, it's high in protein, and that kind of takes the edge off if you're not used to not eating in that time frame. But remember, you're going to get calories from your body, not from the food plate. And every time you burn those calories, every day you come in here, you're going to lose inches around your midsection. You're going to tighten your arms, wherever the laser's applied, the thighs, the chin, the back fat. It's that simple. There's no rocket science to this. Don't eat 2 hours before you come in. Be hungry. Enjoy the laser. Burn those calories. Drink plenty of water afterwards. And of course, eat a clean, safe, smart, healthy diet. If you're not willing to have some control over your calories, this process is severely retarded, but we can help you with that too. I hope this makes a lot of sense and gives you a little more understanding as to what we do at the Slim Body Laser Spa here in Stuart. I thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day.